Chapter 5. A green t-shirt and brown yfronts. When I woke up the morning of the sports day, I was nervous. And I didn't feel too good because I'd slept really badly worrying about the 50-metre sprint. I'd got myself so worked up the night before that I'd snuck out my window and crept up to Kimber's grave. His shining halo was propped up against the root of the old gum tree, staring longingly up at the stars as usual. He was even wearing the blue papier-mâché cap that I made him in art, with Coach written on the front of it. "It's only natural to be nervous," he said. "The trick is to use your nerves to your advantage. Let them give you an explosive start." "But what if I'm too sick to run?" I whimpered. "Don't even think like that, Stephen. You must run. You owe it to yourself, and you owe it to me. What have we spent all that time and effort and training for? I haven't been leading you all over soccer pitches for nothing, have I? It's all right for you. You've got big legs. Try reaching those speeds with legs the size of mine." "Stephen, I can't rest. I won't rest until I know that you're on the right track to making something of your life. You can do it. I know you can. Please, Stephen, do it for me," he barked, almost loud enough to wake up the house. He could be very persuasive when he wanted to, and as I slipped back into bed, I tried to talk my nerves into working for me instead of against me. I knew I'd do okay in the 25-metre, but the 50 was as long as the town swimming pool, and I wasn't sure I could make it to the tip of the diving board, let alone the end. This was my first carnival, because we weren't allowed to compete when we were in grade 1 and 2, and as I sat with the other grade 4s, I kept thinking that a teacher was about to come up and tell me that even though I'd gone up a grade, I wasn't technically old enough to race and would have to wait until next year. My stomach was having quite a rumble when Mr. Serini, the grade 7 teacher, whose wife taught grade 1 and was nicknamed Bazookas because of her large boobies, tapped me on the shoulder. "Stephen, I'm afraid we have a small problem with the running," he said, staring at his clipboard as a nervous spasm looped around my tummy. "What's wrong, sir? I hope I can still run, 'cause I promised my dead uncle on his deathbed, dear Uncle Kimber, that I would run for him today, and I have to." I felt quite bad telling a lie, but it was a white one, the same colour as Kimber. And I had promised I would run for him, and I didn't want to let him down. Mr. Serini stared at me without saying anything. For a second, I thought he knew that I'd called his wife Bazookas in my head. Then, luckily, he spoke. "Look, Stephen, I've got you down for the 50 and the 25. I think you'll only be able to run one. You see, Walker and Bignell want to run as well. Now, Bignell's our fastest runner, so he'll get to do both. And you and Walker can do one each." I was devastated and spoke without thinking. "Please, Mr. Serini, please, look, I'll do anything if you let me run. I promise I'll never say Bazookas again. I won't even think it. I've just got to run for Kimber." He looked at me as if suddenly I had something on him. "Okay, Stephen, look, I can slip you into the Year 4 25 dash. And there's a space in the Year 6 50-metre dash. Okay? Now that's the end of it," he said curtly as he stamped off to his wife down near the finish line. The grass felt particularly spiky that day as I stood in the marshalling area behind the start of the Year 4 25-metre sprint. As I leant forward at the start, my head was buzzing, and I couldn't stop thinking about how scary 50 metres would be against grade 6s, even with Kimber's coaching, and how much I wanted to beat Darren Bignell, who was at the other end of my heat. My mind was so swollen with revenge plotting that I didn't hear Mr. Bolton clap his hands, and I didn't know the race had started until Mrs. Sereni's Bazookas bounced me along my way as she told me to run for green. When I did snap out of it and look up, the rest of the field was halfway to the finish, and I was ready to give up. But without any conscious thought, my legs started spinning so fast you could hardly see them, and I began running and reeling in the nearest of my rivals. My bare feet somehow felt liberated without the weight of soccer boots, and the yellow-brown cooch seemed determined for me to win as it catapulted me along my way. I swear I'm not exaggerating when I say that Darren Bignell's hair was blown forward as I rocketed past him. Then, just as independently as they'd started, my feet slowed, and a sea of green converged around me. I'd beaten my nearest rival by about 15 metres, and my team were ecstatic. Well, as ecstatic as a group of Parabadoo kids standing in full sun with bare feet on patchy grass reaching about 39 degrees Celsius get. It would have been very easy to spend the rest of the carnival coasting around on the emotional high of that win. That was, if I didn't have to run in the grade 6 50. By the time I was leaning into the starter's hands, my guts were scrunched up like a Twisties packet that had been shrunk under a grill, and it took all my strength not to throw up. But this time, I heard the starters clap, and I, and more importantly Kimber, would not be denied. Even though most of the other guys in the race had already started their arc into puberty and were consequently longer and stronger than I was, they didn't have my invisible leg spin. At 10 metres, I was 8 metres in front, and at 20, I was 15. And that's about where my lead stayed until near the end, when my legs decided to really open up and send the green shirts into a whiz, not unlike the spin cycle of Mum's Hoover. If I was really worried about being popular, then I'd blown it big time, because everyone was talking about speedy Stephen Gonzalez. Trevor Barkler's followers had abandoned the fond strut and were wandering around behind me, trying to copy my invisible leg spin. And as I gloriously gulped gallons of water from the green tea mesky, I momentarily pushed aside my anxiousness and stood squarely in the moment. And what a moment it was. I had run, I had won, and in doing so, I had repaid all the hope, time, and effort that Kimber had instilled in me. Seeing as there were another couple of hours of high school races to go before the end of the carnival, I thought I'd sneak off and do some celebrating with the coach. But Mr. Sereni's finger, tapping on my shoulder, made me turn around faster than the physics of my newfound confidence bubble would allow, consequently causing it to burst. "Stephen," he said, with a look that suggested both new respect and an imminent favour, "how would you feel about running one more race?" I looked up at him with water still seeping in the space between my teeth and tongue. "Oh, I'm pretty tired, sir." "And I can certainly understand why," he panted. "Thing is, we're short a runner and no one has been able to get anywhere near you all day. The team needs you, Stephen. Green needs you," he said stirringly. "You're not going to let us down, are you?" This green thing seemed to be quite contagious. After a couple of seconds deliberating, I put the esky down, looked Mr. Sereni in the eye, imagined what he'd look like with his wife's bazookas, and nodded my head. "I'll do it." "Good boy," he said as he marched off to register my name at the marshalling stand. "But sir, which race is it?" "The open 200 metres," he sang back. My old friend Anxiety, a little pissed off at being banished earlier, returned with so much venom that I had the first heart palpitation of my life there and then. My mind felt like it was being blasted by sand as a Pilbara dust storm enveloped it. My legs became invisible again. But this time they weren't spinning. I was, and I fell like a kangaroo that had just come face to muzzle with a .303 rifle. All I was aware of was the ground, encrusted with jagged quartz, rushing at my face. And just as I was about to hit it, Kimber caught me, laid me down gently, and nuzzled at my ear. "You can do it," he said. "Good luck with everything, Stephen." And then he was gone, and replaced by hundreds of peering faces. "Is he all right?" one said. "Hey, still breathing?" said another. "I'm fine," I retorted, climbing to my feet. "I just tripped over, that's all." "Oh, you dear boy," said Mrs. Serini, as she plunged my face into the valley of her chest. She took me over to the tin shed, where I'd been shown my first stick magazine, and for a while it looked like it was turning into one of those dirty stories you get inside them. I don't know how many times she pressed me into her cleavage and bounced my head from boob to boob. After I assured her I'd only stumbled and I was all right, she told me to rest here until the 200 metres. That's right, the 200 metres. What with the dust storm and refresher breastfeeding course in the jumping castle, I'd completely forgotten about it. Oh my God, I was running in the open. That meant year 10s, 15-year-olds. Didn't anyone realise that I was only 8?